Three, two, one. Let's go! Skip-o! Dude, we have no P-Dog.
PBE with 2. It is sad. We lost P-Dog again. Our foreign correspondent is not here, unfortunately.
The laptop is in front of you.
The laptop is in front of me.
Man.
I was in charge of the YouTube machine. And I don't know. I thought I did a decent job.
Dude, phenomenal.
I thought I prepped well.
Definitely. We had, videos staged and papers staged. Like, we were just clicking along.
We were flowing through it. Hey, big news. You just got back from the oil and gas conference in Denver. Maybe low-key one of the best conferences in oil and gas that you can go to.
Dude, very interesting. Very interesting because most of the crowd is investors and people interested in what's going on in the industry. And then most of the talks are from CEOs of companies that are involved in high-level oil and gas. So for me, coming from the geoscience side, right? 5 years of geoscience and being kind of placed into this business development role and going out there and starting to meet and greet and talk to these people about what's actually happening. And then, of course, I'm talking about the front lines of geoscience.
Yeah.
And,
you're all fired up, and I'm sure they're leaning back and they're...
Yeah. I had to pull it back a little bit so I couldn't see so many glazed over eyes and all that stuff was happening. But, dude, we started with the golf tournament on Sunday, which without question...
Dude, probably the most beautiful golf course I've ever seen.
Oh my gosh, dude. It was called the Arrowhead something in Littleton, Colorado.
Dude, you were just sending pictures to the group, just the flat irons, just right on the course.
Dude.
Do you do any off the outcrop shots?
Believable. So we tried. I don't know if you saw it in my Snapchat, but yeah, we tried, dude. I was golfing with a buddy, and I'm like, dude, just drill it. You could see a flat iron. It's a par 3. But there's a massive flat iron at the end of the par 3, and it's like a wall. And I'm like, dude, get the driver and just blast that wall. It's going to go straight up, and it's going to land back down onto the green. And he's like, I got this.
I've trained my whole life for this moment.
He grips it, rips it, hits it super fat, dude. The ball goes like straight up in the air, and it lands like right in front of the green. Yeah, dude. Yeah, it was trying to be a line drive off the rock onto the green, but no, it didn't. It ended up being okay. But yeah, the golf course is amazing, dude. And I bring that up because that's where the initial introductions for me to all kinds of different people inside the other side of the industry that don't understand, that aren't on the front lines of geoscience.
No.
Right?
They're looking at numbers. They're looking at, hey, what's that stock doing today? What were their quarterly reports? What were It's not necessarily boots on the ground by any means.
Right,
the day-to-day grind of oil and gas.
Right. So I got to start getting introduced, and of course I got that outgoing personality. I'm shaking hands and I'm talking to people, and that's where those initial introductions and initial relationships started happening. And then boom, Monday comes, and it's 7:30 in the morning. Boom, kickoff meetings and keynote speaker, and just much like a geoscience convention, except for it's a lot higher end, dude. Yeah. You walk up and you're on this escalator, and it's all like this backlit, crazy, like cool board that says you're at the oil and gas conference, and everyone's in badass suits, right, and walking around.
Are you saying my Aloha Friday probably wouldn't have been the call?
It's not going to fly at this conference.
Not the conference.
However, everybody, when you get to know them, are Aloha Friday type people. Everybody, when you get to know them and you start breaking them down and getting to really know these people, they're amazing people. They're very smart, and they're trying to understand the industry and trying to find where their portfolios can make better money and all that stuff. So at the end of this conference, man, I'm glad you brought that up. It was eye-opening for me as a young geoscientist, because I feel like the private equity folks and the investors have lost confidence in our ability to find hydrocarbon and being very economic at the same time.
I feel like it's not necessarily they lost confidence, but now they're much more wary, and now they don't know what they're actually looking for, right? Because back in 2014, it was like, we own this great offset acreage. These 2 wells did this. We're close enough. Yeah. We can drill 100 wells and do that. Yeah. And now we know that's not a thing, right? You're dealing with virgin pressures and parent-child relationships. A lot more science needs to go into putting those presentations together. But at the time where all these investments were going, that money was just like, how much you need, man?
Right.
You know?
Right.
$500,000 or like $500 million. What? Yeah, that's more realistic,
$500 million at least. Yeah. Yeah, it was very interesting. So a lot of the presenters were presenting the all their data and all their assets, and it was fascinating for me. And I was in the breakout sessions of a lot of these things, and I was coming from kind of my questions were coming from the geoscience side. I was talking about how are you going to increase your recovery factors? How are you focusing time and attention on how EOR could be developed in the unconventionals?
Yeah.
And that was kind of where I came from. And instantly every time I'd raise this question and then I wouldn't let them just kind of escape those answers. I would continue
that's what needs to happen though, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you might be that dude in the room where everyone's like, oh, God, he's going to ask another question. And like they're up there shaking.
By Wednesday, that was definitely the thing.
But it needs to be said. I mean, that's the point. I mean, you can't keep ducking these hard questions because people are losing money because of it, right?
Yeah.
Because you're saying some bullshit. Excuse my language. You're like, look at this. I turned on the oil knob and it's still going up. And it's like, in reality, we know that's not what it is.
Yeah.
We know those EORs I can look at your production data, right?
Right.
And through the RRC, through IHS, whatever
That's
it is, right?
Whatever you're reporting, which should be the best you could possibly report, is not supporting your story. Yeah, it was pretty wild, man. But you know what? There's still definitely a lot of belief, I think, in the industry. There's still obviously a lot of money in this thing, and it's now what we've been talking about on the PBE podcast. We are living in the moment of that pressure.
Yeah.
And it's now up to us. It's up to our ability to step up and increase the recovery factors and find a technology that's going to expand these decline curves and flatten them out. And it's just the reality of where we are, Skippo. It's the bottom line, man.
It's the bottom line.
That's why we got in this industry.
And not to do an abrupt transition.
But let's hear it.
Let's hear it. That's why we brought on the guest we did today.
Man.
Right? We brought on a guest that is the one that's putting all these fracks away, right? That's designing these stages and actually figuring it out on the engineering side, right?
Yep.
Not necessarily the drilling, but as far as the completions are concerned. Today we got in the man himself, Ryan West.
Ryan West from Admiral Permian, man.
He's seen a lot, man, and his
interesting.
His career is fascinating.
Yeah,
4 years as a civil engineer. This ain't for me. I learned all I could learn. I want to learn more, right? Yep. That desire for knowledge, and all of a sudden he's like, whole family's done oil and gas. Grandfather, my dad, it's in the blood. I got like that sweet crude run through my veins, and he came back out to West Texas, dude, and I thought it was fascinating. Just going from civil engineering to facilities.
Facilities, that was an interesting one,
and then into completions.
Yep, and now he's on the front lines of completion, man. And one of his comments was something along the lines of we want to give the data back from completion to the geoscience side and put that back into your modeling and put that back into your colors, right? That we look at, and that's really, really interesting because as we know and as we're developing this, there's preferential movement in this system.
Oh, yeah.
There's preferential movement in this system, and it's predictable if you know your geology and you know your tectonic history.
If you know the structure of the area, you can definitely figure out what's going to happen. You know, where are those natural fractures and what are those faults actually connected to? So and being able to understand the timing of different events based on faults and based on orientation, it's just, it's there, right? Yep. But that, like he said, that data is not being utilized. And I thought that was interesting because I was like, I haven't looked at that data, to be honest with you.
I mean, how do you take pressure and rate data from your fracks and assuming which way they're breaking and right without macroseismic on every single well and all that stuff? How are you putting that back into your geologic interpretation,
it's a valid point. It's a valid point. And, at this moment, I don't know the answer to that. I really don't. But I think people that are much smarter than me are figuring it out.
Yeah, they better be.
Yeah.
They better be. Or they need to be replaced, the bottom line. If you're not pressuring yourself to be better every day and challenge that data set into your interpretation and make sense of it, because it's real. The data is real.
If you're not questioning it, right?
Yep.
Then that's your biggest problem, right?
Yeah, 100%, man. So I think, dude, to end this, this little, well, to end this show with a completions engineer, this particular show with a completions engineer at this time, after the conference and after where we're at and what we're trying to do and where the industry is, I thought that, dude, that's just perfect, man.
I think it is too, because we're not going to lie, we talked a little smack about engineers on the show, but at the end of the day, bringing Ryan West on and having him, just be up front and just breaking down what's going on as far as completions is concerned. He talking about, different proppants, different types of completions, right? Plug and perf, sliding sleeve, and all the different kinds of treatments they do on site.
Complex.
Yeah, and that's some data that I'd love to get my hands on, because that's something I know I can implement immediately. is as far as what they're putting downhole in order to fix certain problems. That's the data that I want.
Yep. Wow. We gotta get more rock data at where the perfs are being initiated.
Yeah.
Match up your rock data and where the perfs are being initiated and what you're entering into those perforations, fluid-wise and chemistry-wise. Match up that data and you have a bright future. You're going to start unlocking things. And without further ado,
Mr. Ryan West.
All right, man, we're going to start this show. And to start the show, we have to do the conception part of the show. And to start the show, we got to thank our primary sponsor and our conception sponsor, TGS. TGS provides global subsurface data products and services to the energy industry through investments in multi-client data projects, from seismic data and imaging service to well data and products. TGS has the world's most complete digital log library, with 5 times more digital logs in North America than their closest competitor, and 7 times more in the Permian Basin alone. Furthermore, they're leading the way with what they're calling the RLAS, Analytics Ready LAS, by combining their expansive library with machine learning technology to predict well curve response to seed log data where it didn't exist before. TGS is subsurface intelligence you can trust, Ryan West. It's true. It's true. They got an unbelievable data set, man, of gamma ray, neutron density, resistivity, sonic logs. I mean, anything that's publicly available, this company has gone out, digitized them, QC'd them, and they provide it to the industry. And it's a massive, truly a massive data set. And this is what they're doing with it. RLAS is where they take it all, and you can do a pretty good synthetic when you have a gamma ray resistivity and neutron density, when you're trying to build a synthetic sonic and get velocity idea of your rock to tie it to seismic, for example. They have all the actual ran and measured logs, and then where they have something that and sonics where it's measured, and then where they don't have that sonic but they have the triple combo, for example, you can predict a pretty good synthetic off the triple combo. And it's all QC'd and it's spatially recognized through machine learning and AI. And they're building this massive data set across. I mean, you saw that cross-section line that went all the way through the Permian, and they're filling it in with a ton of data. And then those big spec seismic chutes like that, boom, it cuts right through there, and all of a sudden you can build this velocity model that really will allow you to get that seismic on depth a little tighter, and your facies modeling and all that stuff those geos are doing in their black box in the geology department. This could be a super helpful tool, and it's something that we're keeping our eyes on, and something TGS is super pumped about. You got anything else on that, Skippo?
Man, I like what they're doing though, because there is so much data out there, and I mean it's good for. I mean, I know a lot of people are trying to leverage it, the best they can, but, to be honest, you need as much data as possible. And people are trying to leverage with not enough, and they're getting questionable results at best.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see someone trying to step in and push that boundary, especially in machine learning and making it applicable to the geosciences.
Yeah. Is there a lot of machine learning on the engineering and completion side?
Yeah, they're starting to be. Okay. People taking big data sets and trying to figure out what knobs to turn on completions and what knobs are more beneficial than others. So, yeah.
And give us your perspective, or give us your inner thoughts when you're sitting in the conference room and there's about to be a big meeting between all the departments and the geology team rolls in and they start talking. Well, how do you feel inside when your geologists start telling you about the reservoir?
Like, we know more about the reservoir than you. Well, maybe they don't say that directly.
Well, sometimes I feel like you guys just interpret colors all day.
We're visual learners.
No, I don't even pretend to understand what you guys do, and I respect it. You guys, the industry wouldn't be where it's at without geologists. So
that's awesome, man. Yeah, that's awesome. And Ronco Bianco said it well with engineers. He was like, man, you guys carry the burden of using and being held accountable to real numbers. You know what I mean? Like, we get to say plus or minus, it looks good. We know there's some error in our calculation, and where you guys come in, you're like, this is exactly what it should be. And you hit that mark, fantastic. You go over it ideally, but sometimes you miss it, and that's a very real answer.
And I know a lot of times too, I mean, for us, right, we have these grand ideas, and if it doesn't work out, our fallback is like, well, it wasn't executed properly, right? But if it does go off, it's like, oh, that was all us, right? and very little credit goes to the engineer, where it should be, because I mean, at the end of the day, you guys are the ones that are putting the wellbore in the ground and actually stimulating these reservoirs the way they need to be stimulated.
Yeah, it's bridging the gap between the abstract to the black and white, the black and white of the engineering. So companies that can do that well are doing well. So
that's right. That's a fact. There's also something else that TGS provides, GeoNews. I don't know if you guys subscribe to that, but it's basically all the technical information from the industry that they go out and kind of scour from results. And you can just kind of research anything, really completions, upstream, down, midstream, business, government, whatever, politics. You got all kinds of stuff that you can dive down into, and that's called GeoNews. So it's a pretty cool tool, something that if you're dropping your morning deuce, you turn it on.
You turn on the GeoNews, you figure out what's going on in the world of oil and gas, and you move on.
First, where'd you go to school, man? How did this all begin? Tell us a little bit about the beginning for Ryan West.
Well, I grew up in Midland.
Oh, wow.
Dad was in oil and gas, got brothers in oil and gas, so kind of grew up around it. Grandfather drilled wells back in the 60s, 50s,
the old Ellenberger, like chasing bumps. And
oh, yeah.
So oil and gas is in your blood.
Yeah.
Yeah, to say the least.
Yeah, and all that said, so I'll go to A&M. I start off in mechanical engineering and decide I wanted to switch to civil, so I grew up always liked building things. So I've got a really unconventional path to where I'm at. So I actually got a civil engineering degree from A&M. Got out of there in 2006 and did civil engineering for about 4 years in Houston. Did land development. Yeah.
What do you mean land development? Like
so big master plan communities, 10,000, 20,000 acre communities. Like the Woodlands was a master plan community back in the day, doing all the utilities and streets and drainage,
pipelines, and
just trying to make it as efficient as possible and cram as many homes into this. Well, maybe not cram as many into the space, but
So we were a engineering consulting firm working for these for the developers, and so I did that for 4 years. Got my PE, and which is a big deal in civil, and just started getting bored. And I guess the roots started calling, and decided to. So I actually kind of started shopping around, networking a little bit, and landed a job at SM Energy doing facilities, project management stuff, which was a good transition from what I was doing. So did facilities, building out. We had really big water network, building pipeline facilities.
Oh, wow. For the water.
Yeah, doing water stuff.
Treating it and doing recycling and stuff like that?
We were doing some. So they actually had water rights out of the Rio Grande. So we were mainly fresh water down there. We were doing some recycling, but and kind of early 14, I worked with the completions guys a lot and had an opportunity to move over to do learn completion. So 2014, I moved over there and sort of trial by fire. Spent a lot of time in the field and learning it all. And
damn, dude, dealing with the frac companies and every stage, getting that tool in place. And wow, dude, that is kind of unconventionally.
It is, yeah. So I did that. 2015 hit. Of course, you know what happened, crashed. Late 2016, wife and I got shipped out here and worked out here for only about 7-8 months for SM, and had a good opportunity come up to go over to EOG.
Oh, snap. Enron.
Enron, yeah. So I went over to EOG. I was there about 10 months, and then this deal at Admiral came up, and it's like I was telling you earlier, a little bit of a family deal.
Yeah.
Dad and my brother over there, so it's a good opportunity to jump over to a small company. Wow. So I did that in April last year. So
April last year. So Paul Caldwell was working with me for a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Paul.
Yeah. Oh, I want him on the show sometime, man. He's got some stories, man. Yeah, and he jumps to Admiral. Yeah, and it was really exciting stuff. The head geo over there is Blaylock.
Jay Blaylock. Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Good dude, man. I remember crossing paths with him at a TGS event, and we were talking data and just kind of what TGS was doing on the back end, and sharp dude, man. I like. Yeah,
Jay's good, and he's hilarious, funny guy. You need to have him on the show.
All right, man, set it up. We'll do it, dude. So that's kind of a whirlwind through this thing. So the Eagle Ford to the Permian, is there a pretty strong any kind of correlation there?
Not really, other than, fracking's kind of the same. I mean, it's different. There's nuances, but yeah, I mean, the practice of it's the same. So, the culture's different out here than Houston, South Texas. So it's getting used to getting different vendors, dues and all that stuff. But no, it's been good. So I got a little bit of flavor from Midland Basin for 7-8 months working for SM, and then EOG's all Delaware. So been kind of Delaware Basin ever since. So.
That's it.
So what was it like going from these two larger public companies to, a small family shop? Like, how was that transition? Were you a big fan of it? Were you glad to get out of the bigger shop, or was it?
It has its pros and cons. It's the big companies kind of have systems in place and just little stuff you don't even think about, like daily reporting. So, in drilling and completions, your company man's going to fill out a report of what they did minute by minute, and we didn't have any of that. It was all spreadsheets. We kind of developed all that. All that kind of stuff was just kind of a pain to try and build, but it's also kind of cool to kind of build because you can kind of do it how you want.
Yeah. You're like, this was useful, this not so much. Right?
Yeah,
you can kind of tailor it.
Yeah, you can kind of take the things you liked and take the things you didn't like, and so that was cool. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of a pro and a con, though, because you can kind of do what you want and carve your own path. And the good thing about a small company is, we have meetings every day. It's basically the whole company, and you kind of have your hand in a little bit of everything or anything you want. So
a little bit more about land, a little bit more about geo.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, versus, the bigger companies, you kind of get pigeonholed to, it's a completion guy, that's all he's going to do. So that's pretty cool.
That is, man. Really cool. Really cool that you came from the water side, dealing with the brine, all the brine that's coming out of these reservoirs and having to deal with that.
Yeah, and I actually have kind of taken that over at Admiral too. So we're using 100% produced water for fracking.
There we go.
There it is.
Some recycling.
So you're doing it right.
Yeah, we started off using fresh water when we first took over the property out there, and the water's scarce, a little bit expensive, and so we kind of went the as Delaware makes a crap ton of water, so we went the recycle route and hadn't looked back. So kind of managed that under the completions group.
It's badass, man. It's got to be a lot of fun. Did you actually get to build facilities to treat it and everything?
Yeah.
Like you were, dude.
Yeah.
It's an unbelievable experience.
Yeah, we're treating 35,000 barrels a day. So
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Cimarex is a big recycling shop.
Yeah, they are. They're doing it a little differently, though. They're not really.
What do you mean?
So we're kind of doing the more traditional method of treating it, filtering it out, getting out. You can
the solids basically.
You can take it from a kind of a dirty looking produced water to a pretty clean. Our pit at one time looked like the Caribbean. Nice blue.
Come on.
I think Cimarex is taking more just the raw water and pumping it. So.
Yeah.
Just doing a little bit of bacteria, a little biocide, and just pumping it down hole. So
Yep. Dude,
pretty interesting stuff.
I really like that approach. Really, really like that approach. Because these reservoirs, the fluids in these reservoirs have been sitting there for 250 million years, right? In some cases. They don't like to be messed with. Hit that system with what it's made out of and see how she responds. You put fresh water in that thing and... Man,
you're dealing with a whole bunch of geochemical issues that
come on, man. Stoichiometry to the nines. Dude, so that's really, really interesting, man. A great perspective of your career. How long have you been in the career then, into oil and gas?
I got in late 2010, so in about 9 years.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay.
So I did a little over 4 in civil, so...
Yeah.
2 careers.
Yeah, seriously, man. That civil stuff is cool. I'd go down the rabbit hole on that, but we don't need to. All right, so when was it that you got to drill kind of your first, your first little baby where you're like, these are the stages. Here's what we're doing. Let's get after it.
Dr. West, you're in charge of completing this well.
I don't let us
down.
I don't remember the first wells we really, I was really, I sent a procedure out. It was my responsibility, but I do remember some interesting wells in the very beginning that we had issues with. Of course, that's always the ones you remember, the ones you have issues with.
Yeah.
So.
Back in the Eagle Ford.
Yeah, we had some wells that just we were fracking. You run in with plug and perf, go past a certain spot in the casing, frack the stage, come back in the next stage, run back in through the same spot you've already been through, 10 times, get stuck. Your wireline tools will get stuck. So we had set the plug. We were able to come out of it, and what we ultimately ended up figuring out was the casing was getting egged, and it was some sort of slip strike phenomenon going on that we were basically causing ourselves during frac. So a lot of operational fun on those.
Yeah. And probably having a significant impact on the way your fracks were propagating from that wellbore. Very interesting.
Yeah, so it was kind of upper Eagle Ford stuff, almost into Austin Chalk. And a lot of other operators had the same issue. So it was fun, good learning experience stuff. So.
Dude.
So what was like the ultimatum for that field? Was it just this current paleo stress that was going on, or was it more or less just the in situ stress within the formation? Like, what was happening there?
Yeah, so as soon as you started pressuring up and basically lube these slip strike faults, they would just
move.
They would just shift, and it was close enough to the wellbore that it was, Mother Nature did its thing. But it never actually, at least when I was working on it, it never actually sheared any casing. It was just this.
It just moved it. It moved it enough to get things stuck.
Yeah, like this inverted teardrop. We went down with a camera. We went down with a camera and looked at it, and that was kind of the.
Wow.
The yeah. So
wow, that sounds awesome, man. I would love to see that video. I don't know if you can get your hands on that, but that'd be cool.
Yeah, that's probably SM property, but it was pretty interesting. Yeah,
that's really interesting, man.
Yeah, the SM salt mines somewhere in there.
Really interesting. Do we have any similar, I don't know, completion or drilling or stories that match that? I don't, man. I mean, there's a geothermal anomaly in the Delaware Basin in the deeper rock. So that was kind of weird to see. The temperature log was kind of tripped out in the Woodford, the Devonian. It was kind of weird. Shot up. So that was interesting, certainly.
Just like a really hot zone.
Yep.
Temperature hot.
Yeah. Hotter than above and way hotter than below.
Y'all see it often?
Well,
just like
good question, man. Now you're calling me out. I don't I don't think so. I don't. We haven't drilled that many wells that deep, so I'm going to that first one was just eye opening on so many levels, and I was really digging to try to get something that would throw your brain off. But
I'm sure there's a lot of those issues in the Delaware with just how much natural faulting and stuff.
It's a beast, dude. So, wow,
it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's right, man. I mean, it's structurally the most complex basin that I would argue it's structurally the most complex basin that we have in the lower 48.
Probably, yeah.
Mainly because there's just nothing to correlate it to, right? We're predicting all this within the subsurface. It's just
right. You got that problem, and the fact that you're sitting at the kind of that closing point of Pangea, man. I mean, literally, the supercontinent coming together at the Permian Basin in the southern Delaware Basin specifically.
Yeah,
that's insane. Mm-hmm. That's really insane. So, dude, I think that was pretty awesome, man. Anything else for the conception part of the show, man? It's just getting started, just getting the wheels going.
No.
All right, man. Then what we will do is go into the drill down segment of the show. So we will slide over the laptop to Mr. Ryan West, and we'll pull up your presentation, and we'll just kind of bullet point and get walking through the basics of hydraulic fracturing and being on the completion side of an oil and gas company. And for us, it's going to be a huge learning experience. So before we dive down to that rabbit hole, we got to give our thanks and give our shout out to the drill down segment sponsor of the show. Are now in the drill down segment of the show with Ryan West, completions engineer with Admiral Permian, slanging and banging in the Delaware Basin, Culberson and Reeves County, north of the Grisham Fault. The structural complexity is intense. To be a good engineer and to actually make money in this business is a legit thing today. It's not easy. There's nothing easy in this industry. Nothing. And being in that area is very, very challenging and very exciting for a lot of people listening to this show for sure. I mean, that's the heart of the Delaware Basin. XTO to the north, you got all kinds of people around you. Cimarex and EOG. I mean, you're surrounded by some majors, man. It's super exciting. So what we're going to do is drill down into kind of the essentials that we need as geoscientists and other people, land and everything else that goes into this industry. We need a basic understanding of what exactly we're doing, what kind of questions can we all come from to help with the process. We're not trying to poke holes. We're just trying to get better. We're searching for efficiency constantly, day in, day out. So we're going to do that with Ryan West, man. We're going to do that. We're going to do that with Skippo in the room.
In theory, we're in the room.
The first thing we're going to do is we're going to watch this video.
All right.
This is a marathon video, correct?
Looks like it. Yep. Quick. Marathon.
Yep. That's it. So Marathon's bringing this right to your bedroom. Let's hit play and see what this is doing. We're going to drill a horizontal well. Development of oil and natural gas from shale. Here we go.
Look at this.
I wonder where that was. Okay, I'm digging it. Yeah, that's a huge core. I want a core of that much rock. I'm just going to throw it out there. There's some geology. Boom. What's that gray? You think that's volcanic or what is that? Carbonate?
Shale, man.
Oh, it's a gray shale. Okay. There it is, man. There it is. The whole operation. Boom. Flipping.
Yeah. Boots on the ground.
Yeah.
Getting down hole.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Let's move it along.
Yep,
Here we go.
Boom. All right.
This is it. Okay. So this is like conductor to first, what do they call it? Not intermediate. It's surface casing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Boom. We're drilling the hole.
So we got our freshwater aquifer.
Yeah.
Right.
We got to protect the environment. We're going to case that off.
Take no chances.
There it is.
Boom.
Bang, bang. Man, can you imagine if it was that fast? Boom. Cement set. Now
Just
we're
like
making
that.
money. All right. Let's kick this thing along.
Yep.
They're letting the casing set.
I'm sure they're saying some pretty insightful things.
Okay. What do they got going on here? Oh, what is that? Setting
That's probably your intermediate casing.
Okay. There we go.
However many strings you got.
Okay. Now we're drilling ahead.
Boom. All right.
Let's drill ahead. Oh, we're already in the lateral.
All right.
We drilled too far ahead.
Yeah, we drilled too far ahead. There it is.
Let's go back. Boom.
There.
Here we go.
Okay.
We were almost there. We
set a lot of casing at the surface to protect the aquifer.
Boom. Now look at this.
We found our pay.
Oh, look at that outcrop, dude. That's obviously not to scale. But there it is. They were setting the curve. We didn't drill a pilot. We're just confident. You land in this black thing, and we're going to frack it, and we're going to get hydrocarbon out of this.
Boom. We drilled it. They're saying something.
Yep. Looks like they're going to get ready for casing again, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Boom.
Now they're going to cement it.
Boom.
Boom. Okay. Oh, a little too far.
That looks like a perf gun.
Yep. All right. So this is where Dr. West comes in.
Yeah. Let's pause it for a second.
And so you see your patient, aka the formation. What's going on here?
Yeah. So that is a cheesy rendering of a perf gun. Yeah.
Are you telling me not all perf guns look like
it just shut off?
Yeah, look like an extra strength Tylenol pill?
Now that's also going the other ways too. It's like a plus sign in the formation, right?
Yeah. So typically, 60-degree phasing, so you have a shot every 60 degrees or 30 degrees or 90 degrees, whatever you want to do.
Okay.
This one's a 180. It looks like.
Yeah.
All right, let's pause the video for a minute and let's talk about that. I was at a conference just recently, and I think it was Core Lab. Core Lab was giving a presentation, and they were talking about how when you get that perf gun down there, it's kind of sitting on the bottom of the casing, and these perfs can be really violent where it's sitting right up against the casing, and then it could be kind of not that great, and you get an inconsistency in those perfs in the reservoir. I thought that was kind of interesting. That's reality. That's actually happening.
Yeah, I think the conventional gun, they do that now. People like Geodynamics have come out with, and a lot of other companies come out with kind of an equal hole, and so it doesn't really matter where it's sitting and which gun's firing. It's going to be equal hole through the casing.
Nice.
So
okay, so that's been
pretty cool technology.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's like a simple problem that I wouldn't have expected to come across.
Yeah. Same.
It is. It just drives your frack to one place or the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
All of a sudden you think you're perfing every, what do you say, like 60, 30, 90 degrees. All of a sudden now you're only doing half of it.
Really good observation. Because if you don't want to go up or down, and all of a sudden you got a way more powerful perf going up or down, that's a problem. You want half length. You want to go sideways really well and not so much up and down. Mm-hmm. Holy smokes, you got to control that. Okay, I'm digging it, man. Let's see what else it does. What's that? That's a frack crew?
Van, yeah.
Is that guy sleeping?
He's probably sleeping.
Dude, have you heard 25,000 horsepower at the surface of the earth?
No, it'll lull you to sleep, man.
Oh, man.
It just hums you to sleep.
Dude, not me, man. I was on my toes. I was looking at like pressure lines and going, man, this is insane. Okay, what are we at?
Water and sand.
Let's pause it.
All right. Okay.
So I think I've got it some slide a little bit more.
All right. We can go into the detail later?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's do that. Let's go into the details
So
later.
a lot of water and sand, and then some other things over here.
Additives.
We'll go into what some of these things are.
But that's an interesting perspective. 99.5% water.
Yeah.
Water and sand. The chemical's such a minute thing.
Boom. Now we're hitting that perf. We've initiated fracks. We got sand getting put away. Look at this. The view from a hydrocarbon molecule just making its way back into the well.
It's real video footage right there.
Live in perf.
Look at that perm, man. That perm is legit. And now what are we doing?
They're setting a frack plug to isolate from that.
Let's pause that for a second. That frack plug, 100%. Can you figure out if your stage before the frack plug actually reached this distance, or are you assuming that frack did not bust up anything around this plug?
Yeah, you're talking kind of interstage or interstage communication. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of science out there to try and figure that out. I mean, there's really no way. And as people, I'll kind of get more into that, but as people drive these perf clusters, cluster being what they show there, closer and closer together. I mean, yeah, you're probably seeing some communication, but
interesting.
Is it good or bad? I don't know.
That's right. Yeah.
All right.
Fracking again. Boom.
There's that 99.5% water and sand coming in.
Bang, 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 bang. Look at that.
It's that quick.
So
I think on the video, he mentions they drill it out, which
they drill that really
show. Yeah, I mean that's typically what you do, but they don't show it on the video like that.
I was going to say, but some of those plugs, for the most part, if you're unable to drill them out, if you start flowing back the well, there are like mechanisms inside of them to let
Yeah, most of those they're frack plugs, so they have typically an inch or two. You can flow back through them.
Okay.
Yeah. And they're isolated with a ball that you drop that sits on the top part of it. So when you start flowing back, that ball
opens up that plug.
Yeah, we'll move back and
got it. There it is, man. What do they call it? The Christmas tree?
Frack tree.
Oh, the frack tree. Man, the dudes are up
at Christmas. They should put like ornaments on there.
Oh, this is a timeline of how 1 month we're drilling. Ooh. Within a month we're completing.
Yeah,
Oh man,
a little outdated.
Pretty shaky time frame.
Yeah, okay. I was gonna say it takes you a couple months to complete a well. That
production of 20 to 40 years.
There
production
you
of 20, 40 years.
Look at those.
Look at that rig stood up. Wow, man, that was blowing and going. This was made in like 2012 or something, 2013 maybe. What was that?
They take away the frac tree and then they just.
Oh, they're talking about after the 20 to 40 years.
Got it. Get the horses back out there.
Yeah,
Here we go.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Now the horses own it again.
Here we go. Boom. We got our energy out of the ground.
And you called it 2012.
Oh, snap. Mm-hmm. Yeah, dude. Having that many rigs stood up right there doing horizontal wells. They're blowing and going, man.
All right.
Cool.
Let's hop to this video. So this was something that you brought to our attention. And this is from Liberty?
Liberty, yeah.
Yeah, they're doing a great job with some of these videos on their LinkedIn page.
We got a big spoon.
So purified water. You got that base fluid. I feel like I'm watching like one of those, viral cooking videos. Yeah. You know what I'm talking about?
Well, I think that's what he's kind of doing. And what he's showing here is
guar gum.
So it's guar-based gum. You can buy it off the shelf.
Yeah.
What he's doing is mixing kind of shelf items you can buy at the grocery store and essentially creating cross-link gel.
So I can go frack my own wells right now.
You could.
If you're on a budget.
So the guar is the base of most gels that people use.
I guess he's doing that to show the consistency of it right now. So he puts the guar in. He's going back and forth.
He's a little bit more viscous. Yeah, I think he's explaining it. He's using the baking soda as a buffer to raise the pH of the water, I believe.
Oh, is that a baking soda paste?
Yeah, look like it. I've never seen that, but.
What do we got here?
Visine.
So I wouldn't recommend drinking this, as we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, nope. You'll be on the toilet for a day.
Unless you're going for one of those like classic LA juice cleanses, then yeah, go for it.
The what is that thing called? The wick? Whatever that multicolored wick. Wow, look at that. It's already
so it's not quite as snotty as or as thick as
real
like a cross-link, but yeah, you can't really do the lid. But I mean it's getting better as he shakes it.
Wow, look at him just grabbing it. What the
Yeah. But I mean as far as something that you can make. You can go to HEB and pick up all the ingredients right now and say, I'm going to make this in my kitchen just for fun.
Right. Shout out to HEB.
Yeah, and I think that's what they're doing here, just kind of on the offensive. Like, look, we're not pumping these super harmful chemicals down hole.
It's like this is stuff that you can use every day.
This isn't, they're not really pumping guar gum and baking soda, but it's the base of those chemicals are the same.
Yeah.
So. Pretty interesting
just
stuff.
like a higher concentration for the most part.
Have you found the one where he takes a shot that him and the Colt crew
I think
take
it's down. Team Liberty is right.
That's it.
I haven't seen this one, but
I just watched him give a presentation. The guy in the middle. Yeah, this guy's blending.
That's the CEO.
Yeah, this guy's blending it up, man. I mean, you can go to the end of the video. He's basically just mixing in what's in an average like slick water completion. Mm-hmm. It's not the guar gum that they're taking shots of. But he brings the whole crew in, man. He brings.
So they're making shots of it right now.
Yeah. If I was the receptionist, I'd be like, I'm out. I'm out on this idea.
Why didn't we do shots of this?
Yeah, they got it on draft in the back. Look at that.
They got it on draft.
Just that slick water on draft.
Oh, I doubt that's
slick
water.
And that's it. There's the Liberty crew, man, taking shots. Boom.
That's good for them, man. They're putting out some good videos like that. Hopefully, it's reaching out outside the industry.
Yeah. So. Now I heard one of the dudes from that little clip right there sick for 6 months.
From that?
Yeah.
No.
Even though it was put out like a month ago.
Just kidding, man. All right, dude, let's do it. Let's get into the shale play hydraulic fracturing overview from Ryan West in August of 2019. We're going to dive down into this stuff, and I already have questions just from the little bit of videos that we watch, man. So I'm sure there's going to be plenty. I'll let you. The floor is yours, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just threw this together to kind of have some talking points of I don't know, you can call it hydraulic fracturing 101 or whatever, but this is just stuff we pulled together. So this is actual Admiral frack job. It was actually our first frack job when we took over the property from Three Rivers in May of last year. So kind of a cool pick.
Dude, with the mountains of Culberson are awesome, man.
Yeah, it's the Rustler Hills out there way to the west. So kind of cool. It's just a single well. So, typical zipper you see now is a lot more equipment, but kind of a cool picture. So,
yeah. I mean, that was the first, though. That was the trailblazer, right?
Yeah. So they had wells in the property that Three Rock had drilled. We had quite a few wells, but that was the first Admiral frack job. So
wow, kind of
cool. So this was all mainly stuff off the internet, but just kind of interesting. The overall arching theme is that fracking's been around for a while. It's not a new thing, but
wait, am I reading? So acid and napalm combined with sand and gasoline?
Yeah, pretty crazy, huh? People, I mean, they're essentially trying to create an explosion down the hole, right? I mean, they're trying to bust the rock up via explosion. So,
yep.
Apparently, Halliburton had kind of an exclusive license or patent on the process in 1949, and they were doing some commercial attempts using crude oil, gasoline, and a little bit of sand. Very little sand. So, and then, of course, I think most people know Mitchell Energy really took it, trying to slick water the water.
That's
water
George Mitchell from
yeah,
Aubrey McClendon and all those that whole story of the frackers and all that, right?
Yep, okay. Yep. So they're sort of the pioneers, I guess, of the modern era. Of course, it's changed a lot since 1981 to 1998. So this is kind of just a modern day, what we kind of look at in a horizontal. Just different things we have to think about when we get ready to frack. So what kind of frack do you want to do? A lot of that's sort of based on the different rock, but there's slick water, there's just a linear gel type, there's a hybrid that uses kind of all the above, some cross-link. How much water do you want to pump? Put barrels per foot, that's kind of a common unit that we look at. So water quality, what type of chemistry, so is it fresh, is it produced, is it kind of a brackish water?
Now just real quick with the slick water hybrid and crosslink, I mean, there's a way that you guys can calculate the initial frac that gets put away and the fluid and proppant that gets put into the system has to be suspended. You want it all to be kept open, so that liquid has to be able to suspend the load of the proppant in the system. At the same time, the formation is trying to close back on itself, and you're trying to prop that whole thing. And depending on the data that you get back from wireline and the data that you kind of understand with how this rock's going to break and how your frack's going to go is going to tell you if you need slick water or some gel to help out with that suspension. The slick water, the proppant's going to drop a little faster with slick water. It's real.
Yeah, I kind of get into a little bit of slick water gel. We can skip over to that.
No. That's all about it.
Yeah. Let's go the.
How do you go back?
Just use the wheel.
Oh,
yeah, rock it back.
There you go.
Boom, boom.
Yeah, we can get into some of that. I mean, so kind of secondary thing, wireline or sliding sleeve frac. So I'm sure you've heard a lot. I mean, I don't have a ton of experience with sliding sleeve. I think most of the operators that I talk to know are all kind of doing plug and perf. That's probably the most predominant thing in the industry. But I kind of get into some of the pros and cons, I think, on the next slide. But
cool.
I'm kind of looking at some of that. How many perforations do you want? How many clusters do you want? It kind of goes back to how much. A lot of it's just driven by pressure, right? I mean, how much pressure do you have? How much do you need to break the rock? How much do you actually have with surface equipment and casing and all that stuff not to exceed your limitations there? So perforation size and type. So next is proppant selection. So how much sand do you want to pump? I've got kind of a slide at the end that shows sort of the trend of where we've gone as an industry, really,
cool.
Mainly focusing on Permian Basin. But, I mean, the jobs have gotten bigger and bigger. The pounds per foot have gotten way up.
Yeah.
So sand concentration, that kind of goes what you're saying, with in a slick water, when you don't have any sort of viscous fluid, you're sort of limited to how much, proppant you can put in a gallon of water.
Yeah, versus like a crosslink where you can suspend not more, but like larger grains of proppant.
Right, yeah. Generally with like 100 mesh sand, you can pump 2 pounds per gallon. It's slick water with no viscosity, just using velocity and rate.
Wow.
With the crosslink gel, you could pump 5 pounds per gallon, 6 pounds per gallon. I mean, you could pump a lot of sand in a shorter amount of time with less fluid. But
it's insane to think about. 5 pounds of sand per gallon of crosslink.
Oh, I mean, like that video, that Liberty video, you put 5 pounds per gallon of sand in there, and you actually put it in. And it's just nothing but just brown.
Yeah, it's just
big water.
But it's just chilling in there. It's just
it just suspends. Yeah,
that's crazy.
It is pretty wild.
So size of sand. We've evolved as an industry. I think a lot of the conventional stuff, they were using big sieve size, 20, 40 sieve size sand to 30, 50. I think most people nowadays are pretty much pumping 40, 70, and 100 mesh mainly. So it's gotten smaller and smaller. So bigger the number, the smaller on sand size.
So how is that sand size determined? Is it just the type of grate that they use in order to sort it? Or is it,
Yeah, so the bigger numbers are smaller, so they've got little meshes that are certain size openings, and so you stack them all up, you put X amount of sand on the stack, and you shake it.
Yeah, and whatever falls within this space is considered 30, 50.
Yeah, so 40, 70, like 90% has to fall between the 40 sieve and the 70 sieve size.
Gotcha.
It has to be trapped in there. 100 mesh is 5140 or 7140, depending on who you're asking. So
okay.
And when you hear people say the frack flour, I guess that's like 200 mesh,
silica flour.
Mesh.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. Is there a size to that?
Yeah, there's I think 200 mesh is like 120, 240. I think it's super fine.
Looks like flour.
Yeah, I think 200 mesh. There's people pumping. It's kind of operationally you're capable of doing it, but you get much smaller than that, it becomes a kind of an operational hazard, safety hazard, really.
Yeah,
it's so fine. I mean, you breathe that stuff in. There's no respirators or anything that can really stop that fine of a particle. So
yeah, I mean, at that point, let's be honest, you're just hitting it with fucking water. I mean, you got flour and some material.
Well,
in
unless you're expecting it to cake up or something, right? Within the reservoir.
Then use freaking whatever the other bigger size is. I mean, it sounds like it doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, so the conventional thought was like conventional wells. You want as much frac length. You want as much width. You want to create the highway. I think you had mentioned in some of our talks. You want to create the big highway and touch as far out as you can, right?
Yep.
The unconventional, because the rock is so tight, and I mean, you guys probably tell me better than I, it just takes so long for a molecule of hydrocarbon to seep through it. You need the surface area, right? You've got to touch as much rock close to the wellbore as you possibly can. And so if you can pump smaller sand, touch just a couple more inches propped, and you just get that much more hydrocarbon. I think that's kind of the thought process that everyone's kind of gone to with these unconventionals. More surface area, not frac
not
length.
necessarily how large can we make these wings, or what is it called?
Frac wings?
Bi-wings. Yeah, those bi-wing fracks. You don't want to be, I want to get 2,000 feet out there. No. I don't care. No, but then at that point, right, then it's, what rock are we actually in anymore?
I mean, you don't want to get out that far because, one of the things I think we'll talk on the end is the industries, these parent-child wells. I mean, you're trying to keep these things and capture as much, rock or hydrocarbon near wellbore as you can, and you don't want to go out that far. You're not drilling a well every mile anymore. You're drilling them every 400 feet. And
Yep. So, I mean, it's the traditional big conventional reservoirs where if you can get a big-ass highway through this massive reservoir offshore or conventional reservoir that has this great permeability and porosity relationship, and all you need to do is connect as much of your wellbore into that, then that totally works. But that's not what we're doing. Yeah. This unconventional is not.
You can't, because the oil's not going to get to that to that highway. Right. I mean, in these things. So
pressure dependent perm and all that bullshit. Yep. It's crazy. Okay. All right, man. We're there. I'm in.
But I think it's taken the industry quite a few years. This, at least in Permian Basin, I know horizontal drilling, unconventional, kind of took off 2010, 2011. Yeah, and it's sort of taken 6, 7, 8 years for people to really get their head around and kind of abandon that old conventional thinking.
Wow, which is exciting for us as young professionals for sure.
Conventional, unconventional thinking.
Boom.
Yeah.
Quote it.
The hybrids. The hybrids.
So, and then just the other things, design rate, pressure, kind of touched on some of that. Water source, kind of touched on that. Chemicals, I'll get into a little bit more what each chemical does. Nice. Offset well proximity, parent-child relationship like I was talking about, and then, of course, economics drives everything. So,
at the end of the day, that's the goal. Did this make money?
So this was a crude throwdown of plug and perf versus sliding sleeves. Stole some pictures off the internet. So
that's Whiting. We'll give him a shout out. That's Whiting.
Well, I did put credit.
Nice.
To this, and you can obviously see Whiting. Yeah. I don't know where the middle one came from, but so plug and perforate clusters using
mark it back.
Perf shaped charges, isolate a stage using a frac plug, and so advantages, you can customize the wellbore. You got, when you completion guy shows up, he's got a blank slate. He can put these perfs wherever he wants to sort of initiate, call them fraction initiation points or whatever you want to call them. Like I said, it's the most common method today, so there's a ton of people in the industry working on how do we make better perfs. Talked about the equal entry stuff earlier. How do we make better plugs, easier to drill out, dissolvable plugs, all these things. And so there's a lot of people working on it. And then, another advantage when completion's finished, you got a wellbore that's clear. So you go out, drill all the plugs. You've got a wellbore that's, just as you started with it, other than the holes in it, so... versus a sliding sleeve where, they're taking up room in the wellbore. It's hard to go clean out. A lot of these wells make a lot of sand. You've got to go do clean outs to the toe. And it's just harder to do that with sliding sleeves. So, disadvantages, takes a little bit longer to complete. Sliding sleeves, it's continuous pumping. And you've got to draw out the frac plugs. There's a good expense that comes with that. It's kind of a waste. You pump it down, you set it, you come back 4 days later and drill it out. It's kind of a waste. But
wow.
So sliding sleeve, these are tools run in place on casing. Most of them are open using a ball or like a little key slot, different things. The advantage, and I don't. It's hard to see if this is advantage or not, but the pinpoint fracking. So you could put, based on whatever you see on drilling, good gamma spike or whatever, you can place a fracture point right there using the sleeve. A little bit easier than you can plug, and you're also fracking out of one hole. So,
so you don't need to answer this question if I'm pushing too far, but when you're looking at from a completions engineer perspective, because as a geologist, when we're going horizontal, we're looking, like you said, at gamma. Maybe we're looking at ROP, trying to figure out, is the rock getting harder? Is it easier to drill? As a completions engineer, are you going back and are you looking at whatever data you have and saying, all right, this seems like a good spot to put a perf because of, ROP or, that gamma spike?
I think it's the opposite. You're looking for stuff not to frack, right? So if there's a fault or something you want to avoid. But, there was a big push, I don't know, I was still in the Eagle Ford, so 3, 4, 5 years ago for engineered fracks. So, you take some of that drilling data and you try and target these gamma spikes or whatever, and you try and go after that. And a lot of companies were doing that stuff, and you'd spend a lot of time, a lot of money trying to chase this stuff.
Yeah.
And there was really at the end of the day, you didn't really make a better well.
Yeah. Well, they're chasing a gamma spike, dude. That's terrible.
I'm just using that as an example. Yeah. But I mean, it wasn't any indication that you're making better well, and there's a chance you left wellbore behind because you skipped 100 feet because you didn't have a good marker or whatever you were chasing. So now I think the mentality for most people is just, frack the piss wad out of it.
Yeah, that's exactly where we're at. Yeah.
So you want as much fracture initiation points, you want as much complexity down hole as you can, and touch as much rock as you can. So,
interesting.
So, yeah, I think that kind of covers anything. Any questions on any of this stuff? Kind of showed some diagrams. This is a crude sketch of just a frac plug and some guns. I mean, obviously it's not to scale, but
yeah.
So when they say we're pumping guns, what are they referring to? Like, what are they actually pumping, or are they just, or is it something? Am I
that's
totally
a good question.
off on that?
No, so obviously you got tool string sitting on a wire line. You can't push it out. You can only free fall so far. So you've got to physically pump it down. So you're physically pumping water at
to get it
14,
down.
15, 16 barrels a minute, and just pushing it out to where you want it to go.
Wow.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's kind of a coordinated effort between the wireline engineer controlling the wireline and the pump operators. So,
all right.
Yeah.
Makes good sense. Okay, we can get down there. We can frack it. We're not sure which rock to frack down the lateral, so at this point we're just going to frack the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And
no rock left behind.
No rock left behind.
Yeah, what's interesting note on that is, when I first got in completions in 14, you were doing 40, 50-foot cluster spacing. So between a set of perfs were 40, 50 feet, and now people are 15 feet, 10 feet. I mean, you're just getting closer and closer, trying to get more and more rock. So it's just gone down so much.
It's crazy to think about, like 10-foot cluster spacing on like a 10,000-foot lateral.
Oh, I know.
That's what.
Here's why. I mean,
it's $10 million completion job.
You've got clusters.
Oh my goodness.
2 clusters within this room. You know what I mean?
Wow. They're fracking the hell out of that thing. 2,000 pounds of proppant and blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
Holy smokes.
A lot of energy.
Energy's good. We need to energize the system.
Yeah.
So here's some of the chemicals. We don't have to get into every one if y'all are interested in one, but these are kind of just a broad overview. There's probably more than this, but friction reducer is probably the most common one. Can't hardly pump a well without it. Mm-hmm. Just helps with pressure. What's
it doing water. Exactly?
It's slicking up the water, so your pipe friction is just creating so much pressure when you pump down that fluid, and your pressure limited to 10,000 or 11, 12,000, whatever the system is between the casing and the wellhead. So it's just helping with that. So it slicks the water up just slightly to kind of reduce that pipe friction.
Okay.
No.
Yep.
Does that do anything as far as the viscosity of the fluid? Are you reducing the viscosity doing that? Obviously, you're going to be able to pump more slick water down than crosslink, but
yeah, so it actually raises the viscosity a little bit. Just traditional FRs probably aren't going to raise it that much. I put the third bullet point there, the high viscosity FRs. A lot of people are using those. It's not quite gel, but it is sort of the same basis of it. You can carry a little bit more sand, a little bit easier. So that's kind of a newer thing in the industry of what people are using. So
all right.
Biocides, that's another common one. Just bacteria control. A lot of different varieties. Chlorine dioxide, bleach, just like household bleach. There's a couple other ones there. Gelling agents, that's kind of like the Liberty video we watched. Just guar typically, just used for better proppant transport. Clay stabilizer, some people are pumping it, some people aren't. Just used to prevent clay swelling. The old traditional one was just potassium chloride, the KCl. There's other KCl substitutes people have. Choline chloride's one.
Choline chloride, yeah, I remember that being brought up.
Scale inhibitors are a big one out in the Permian Basin. A lot of scaling out
what
here.
Kind of scale?
Everything. I mean, you see iron sulfide, calcium carbonate, barium sulfide.
Son of a bitch. I mean, is that? Do you think that's coming from the drilling operation and what we're putting in the muds as we drill, or why is
probably all the above? I mean, a lot of it's frac fluid, a lot of it's formation. I mean, we see wells out west that you've recovered all your frac, at least the volume of frac fluid, and you still see scaling. So you can go out and clean it up, and you see still scaling. still seasoning.
Wow. So. What? Yeah, that's an interesting problem.
Yeah, maybe it's just that depressurization, right, going on. But then now all of a sudden you're whatever was held in, within the fluid is now being able to precipitate out of the perfs, just gone.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, pressure drop will.
Damn, that's gnarly.
So
that's destroying production. That's destroying longevity.
You'll see it drop off, and you go in there, and a lot of it's acid soluble, some of it's not. If you have extreme stuff like your barium sulfide, it's not acid soluble, so you got to go drill the sucker out, basically.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
It's an entropy problem.
Yeah.
Sheesh, it's ugly.
Surfactants. A lot of people pump surfactants. Just it's used to lower the surface tension between fluid and the rock. There's a lot of.
This is the idea that you got an oil wet rock and you want to make it water wet.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Yeah, a lot of people claim EOR increases. I think the big thing on surfactants is just cost. I mean, you raise the cost, and is it worth it?
Right.
Some companies think so, some companies don't. Damn, that's so good.
I know, man. Dropping acids in there.
Yeah, acid just help break down formation. Diverters kind of becoming a more common thing. They've been around for a long time, but
we want more rock face, man.
Yeah, just trying to, if you have a few perf clusters that aren't taking fluid, you can divert away from the ones that are and try and break more rocks. So a lot of them are degradable now, so you just time and temperature, they'll degrade away. This is just kind of a basis of gel cross-link jobs, get the viscosity up, help carry your larger amounts of sand. They're generally more expensive, just pretty complex chemical systems. A lot of the frac engineers and stuff have to spend a lot of time kind of learning through this. And like I said, it was very common and conventional. I think it's there's still plenty of people out here pumping them, but I think it's becoming less and less common. So slick water, a little bit lower viscosity. Like I said, the high visc FRs and stuff maybe get the viscosity up. You're limited to lower sand concentrations. You can't really pump the big grain size, sand grain size like 2040. Less chemicals, easier to execute. And I kind of put on there ideal for unconventional plays with low permeability where surface area or reservoir fracture is important. So kind of going back on what I was kind of touching on earlier.
So typically when you're doing slick water, like granted, right, you don't have that viscosity that you would in a linear or cross-link gel, and you can only carry a smaller grain size. But with the fluid volumes that you're then pumping, is there some sort of equilibrium? Like let's say the numbers aren't going to be right, but let's say with slick water we can pump 100 barrels, and with cross-link we can only pump 50. But within that 100 barrels per foot or whatever, we're only able to carry this many grains of sand or whatever compared to the cross-link. But overall, are you able to put more proppant away with slick water opposed to cross? I don't know if I phrased that right. I was kind of there.
You could put the same amount of proppant away. It would just take more water with slick water, right?
Yeah.
Because you just can't do it can't do it as quickly with such high concentration.
Gotcha.
So,
okay.
Yeah. So, and there's it goes kind of back to the machine learning stuff y'all asked in the beginning. I mean, there's these machine learning AI. They're trying to figure out which knob to turn, and maybe water's one of them. Barrel per foot. Is it more water's better, less water's better? And so.
Sweet.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah. Wrapped up the drill down segment of Ryan West's show, man. And it was very, very educational, man. You broke down it very well, articulated the complexity of what we do in the subsurface really well. And I think my observation or my question to you is, how much engineering completion are you guys focusing on? Because from the geoscience side, and I feel like the future of geoscience, we're understanding that these muds and this unconventional stuff is moving at a very weird and dynamic pace when we go laterally in these things. We can see a ton of change, especially now when we start breaking it down geochemically. All these other tools that we can use that are increasing our resolution of what's happening down this lateral. I think what we can't do is to continue to just frack everything on whatever stages. I don't think that's maximizing our economics, man. I think we are going to eventually understand these unconventionals a little bit more. We talked about in general kind of our just advancement as unconventionals in time has been anyway. I think our geologic interpretation and what we're learning on the geoscience side is finally catching up to our ability of going horizontal and putting fracks away. We're finally starting to catch up with geoscience concepts that you guys outpaced us. You got to go lateral. You got fracks put away. Like, engineering and technology has got to this point. Geoscience is finally catching up, I feel like. So I don't know if there's a question or I guess that's just my rant.
That's a solid take. We needed one. We needed one this show, and that was the first one. So I'm happy to experience that right now. No, but I mean, it is valid, right? I mean, for the most part, geoscience is similar to what you've been saying, right? The way that fracking has evolved in the last 7-8 years, right? From the unconventional fracking methods, right? Not saying that we were using napalm 10 years ago, right. But the cluster spacing and understanding, hey, we don't need huge bi-wing fracks. Geology, we're at that point of realizing, wait, what we're doing is wrong, right? The way we're evaluating this, it's old school. We need to bring in new technology in order to evaluate it. And I think that's where, for us, that's where our next step is. But we need to catch up fast so we can help you guys out. I think that's a real big problem right now.
Well, I think the biggest thing is using the frack data on y'all's side. Because, I mean, you gather so much data in just fracking a stage, and you see so much variability from Wolfcamp A to Wolfcamp B to Bone Springs. I mean, they frack so much differently, pressure rate, all these things. And how do you take that data? I think everybody's trying to figure it out how to do it effectively, but how do you take that data and really use it on the geoscience side to land better or whatever,
So how much data actually comes out when you guys, let's just say 7,500 foot lateral, 20-foot cluster spacing or 20-foot spacing? How many, is it like terabytes of data we're talking about per well, or? It's
a lot of data, dude.
Yeah.
What's a normal stage, not a normal stage, but an average stage, maybe 100, 120 foot? You're saying
100. People are doing 100 foot, 100 to 200 feet, whatever. I mean, your frac van's collecting data every second or even tenth of it. I mean, whatever you want.
Yeah.
That's useful data, but it's very clunky and hard to use and hard to sort through. But it ends up like 20,000, 30,000 rows of data on a stage. Over 2.5 hour stage or however long the stage is. So. But I think that's one thing we're working on is how do you use that data and what is it telling you about the rock fabric itself. So I'm trying to bridge that with Blaylock and those guys.
Dude, I bet, man. It's got to be fascinating, dude.
I mean, you got the crew over there to figure it out too, and that's the cool thing.
Yeah, and the big companies like your Conchos, your EOGs, those companies that are got 4, 5, 6, 10 frac spreads, whatever, they're collecting that much more data and that many more stuff to sort through, but there's an answer in there somewhere.
Yes, there is.
But every well and every stage fracks way differently. I mean, every zone we see, Wolfcamp B's and Delaware are very hard to frack compared to the A's, and they just characteristically treat differently. So,
wow. Okay, so that's the end of the drill down segment, and now we're going to go into the completion segment of the show, and we're going to start by appreciating the fact that there are people out there in our country that are helping veterans, the people that go to war and fight for our freedom. There are people here waiting for them to come back, and they provide them support emotionally and physically, and do everything they can to make their lives and transitions back from a very hostile and kind of a crazy place, as we're all probably have some people in our family that went to war, or uncles or cousins or whatever it was that have been subject to the reality of that. And it's the Iron Freedom Foundation that we support specifically on the PBE podcast, and they're our conception sponsor of this show. Completion. They are the completion sponsor of this show.
Dude, you're 0 for 2 on the same show, dog.
This is it's getting frustrating at this point. I don't know why I keep doing that, but anyway, we're gonna give a shout out and we're gonna run a commercial for the Iron Freedom Foundation and to share their journey and to share what they do for our veterans. Let's go into the IFF just for a minute.
Sure. Yeah, it's an organization for combat nonprofit for combat veterans. We're trying to focus right now just on local Permian guys. We're trying to do Will Cannon, the guy that I found this with, was in the Army, and we'd both done a lot of nonprofit work with the majors like Wounded Warrior and Phoenix Patriot and other organizations like that. And we had an idea to do something different to try to impact people in a different way, where we isolate guys in a local area. That way, and whatever the trips are, if it's kayaking, hiking, or anything, we completely outfit those guys so they get all the gear they need to recreate that experience whenever they want to, and they don't have to rely on the centralized, oversight committee to call them up when they have like a free spot or something.
How do you find these guys? How do they get a part of this?
That's been the challenge, especially moving out here, since neither Will or myself is from the Permian Basin. We both ended up here and we love it here, so we wanted to start here and this be our flagship. It's really word of mouth of guys You'd be surprised how small the community is once you start talking. It's just like the oil and gas. But that's our thing now. Our donations are getting so big. We've got huge sponsors like Yeti, Vibe Kayaks, Ultima Boots, Devil's River Whiskey. So we're starting to get the funding we need to we have more money than veterans now, which is a beautiful thing. Because for the first couple of years we were doing this, it was just fighting for scraps. And honestly, lately it's just exploded, and we can't be more proud, man. I mean, every one of us gets beat the hell up. You got bruises, rock rash. That's the point, man, because you got to rely on each other.
Yeah.
And just the teamwork it takes to get through. You kind of get that back in that mindset when you're in. So when you get back, it's not like some guy you met, you shook hands with in a photo. It's like, shit, I remember I busted my ass on that rock and you grabbed my paddle, so it ended up floating down the river or whatever.
Right.
So that way when they call up on a Tuesday, Wednesday, they're not strangers or a name on a piece of paper. Like, these guys know each other.
Yeah.
And the testimonials we've got are amazing.
Ryan West, we are going into the completion segment of the PBE podcast with you, with Skips. We can't thank you enough for sharing the conception part of the show of how you got into this thing and really drilling down this show. For us, it's huge, man. I mean, we don't get to talk to guys like this every day. I mean, we have engineers at the company, and it gets compartmentalized, and everybody's working on whatever we're working on, and we move the ship along. But to sit down and to really discuss like this, I hope a lot more people get the opportunity to do that. And we need to integrate more with societies maybe and have those opportunities at happy hours and talk about stuff like this, because I learned a ton.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, no kidding. I mean, specifically, in regards to what's actually going on downhole and like what the different things are that are treating specific problems that I don't know.
Dude, it's so intense, man. I mean, we barely understand the geochemistry of the reservoirs themselves, and then we go in there and we agitate this system with hydraulic fracturing and all these fluids and chemicals and everything that we do. It's such an amazing process, an incredible amount of energy, and it's all dynamic and happening so fast. Production's coming back, and we're moving on and passing the buck to production engineers and all that stuff. I mean, the industry is incredibly fast and dynamic, and we're trying to make sense of it all. I would think in Admiral Permian, just to start this conversation, do you guys get a lot of time to do like look backs and really get the opportunity to kind of see how things progressed in the last few wells? I mean, we hear from some people that work in the bigger companies that there's not much look back. You're chasing the rig monster and you don't have that opportunity. How about you guys?
Yeah, we've got some time. You got to make time too. Yeah. I mean, I've worked for bigger companies, and you can get wrapped up in kind of what's next, but it's hard. I mean, we're talking about all the data earlier, and it's just cumbersome to sort through it all and make sense of it a lot of times. A lot of times it's hard to make sense of. So, but yeah, we do a lot of look backs. We do kind of a pre-frac, kind of looking at the next well, kind of talking about previous wells and trying to apply some of those things to the upcoming wells. And so, yeah, we try our best to do it. But yeah, I mean, I can certainly see how you could just get busy and it's hard to do it sometimes. But
yeah. Really cool, man. Okay, we'll get into EOR and this fight to increase recovery factors, but technology, that whole thing, it feels like we're right on the cusp of something happening because the pressure's on, and pressure makes diamonds, man. We are stepping up. And it's in what way? How are we doing this? How are we focusing on this? And certainly it's completion. It's definitely geoscience. We're finally catching up to the drill bit. We're having the ability to help and understand how these fracks are putting away and how this production trend is potentially being driven by the geology. What do you got, man? What do you think?
So I guess your point is your IPs are going up, but your EOR is not necessarily. Is kind of the point you're making?
No. So we're going to get into EOR too. So we think, I personally believe, and I think PBE would support me in the fact that our initial production from 1,000 barrels of oil a day is going to drastically increase in the near future because we have to. We need more oil and less brine, and we're going to figure that out. As well as the decline curve being just drastically bad, longevity in production being bad. We are going to fix that too. We are. I think that's absolutely going to happen.
I mean, I think it goes back to what we're talking about, complexity versus kind of the old style thinking. I mean, you've got to get, how do you make these frack jobs more complex, and that'll flatten out that decline.
There we go.
And hopefully make that IP.
Yeah.
IP
I think
higher.
you had a quote that I like quite a bit. It was, what was it? It was touch the most. The goal now is not to necessarily get the largest fracks, but to touch the most rock, right? Because that's what we know, the hydrocarbon is there. It's how are we designing these fracks in order to access every freaking barrel of oil we can.
Yep.
And I think there's thousands and thousands of people working on that concept of how do you do that?
I bet, man.
Between people doing different perfs, different frack styles, different everything. I mean, it's what people are talking about. So
yeah,
that's 100%. But dude, we really did learn a lot, man, and we are very excited about the oil and gas industry when it comes to the future of what we can do. If we are truly only getting 5 to 10% recovery factors out of these wells, right? Then that means there's so much potential for us. We can drill less wells and we can increase recovery factors and we can flatten out decline curves, right? We can just get so much more out of this ground, and there's so much more to learn and to figure out, man. That's our generation. This is not conventional big traps that we're chasing and learning all the things that they learned. I mean, we learn a lot from them, but this is unconventional. They don't have that experience. They didn't go horizontal in these unconventionals, man, and in a completely different rock. They drilled through it, and they were like, that's just that zone that pissed us off every time we got to the Ellenberger. So now that's us, man. The pressure is on, and it's our professional responsibility to step up. And I'm pumped for Admiral, man. I'm excited for you and your future at Admiral. You clearly are a sharp dude, and you're doing everything you can to make this thing better. And you have a very interesting perspective. I can see why SM and EOG and now Admiral took advantage of the way you think and how you developed in this career, man. I think you're gonna provide something very, very unique to your operator.
Well, not only that, the way that you explain these ideas, because I know I've talked to engineers at some of these conferences, and I'm, that you say SRV, and I ask like, oh, what is that? But they speak in acronyms. I hate to say it, but a lot of engineers just speak in acronyms, and it's super hard.
That's the oil and gas business in general, right there.
Yeah.
Just like, and I'm just you're kind of sitting there, and you're just like, oh man, and you're just kind of leaning back and just, all right. I want this to end. Stop the bleeding. I don't know anything that's going on anymore. But the way that you're able to frame it up for, a non-engineer and so easily explain it. I mean, that was lights out.
Yeah, lights out. Yeah. Do you have anything for us?
Man, I'd love to have y'all out for a frack job if y'all ever want to go sit on one. So
Hell yeah. Can we bring the mics?
Sure.
Dude, that'd be awesome,
it's always good. It's always good for geologists to come out, sit on a frac job, kind of see the equipment and see what's going on. Sit in the frac van during the stage, watch pressure and rate.
Yeah.
Just kind of what the guys have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. So it's always interesting. So anybody's welcome.
Sweet, man. That's awesome, dude. We'll open that up to the public, man. That'd be fun.
Dude, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
I'm in.
And Skips, what do we say? Is this it?
PBE with 2, and we out.